talking yesterday about the language in the play. You know, Hamlet uses his iambic pentameter. When he has his when he's let loose, when he tells his dream and all that, he slips into that form, and Shakespeare's play kind of collides with the play. You know, begins to collide with our play, with Lady Voltimand coming in at the end. And Faustus is very, very modern idiom, because I figure Faustus gets reinvented every. You know, Marlowe does what he wants with it, and Goethe does what he wants with it, Thomas Mann does what he wants with it, and I'm doing what I want with it. But with Luther, some of the things that he wrote in this really good translation that I was using. Were so, what you're talking about, the passion and the love and just the clarity of this expression, that I wanted to incorporate that in the play. So I had to find a way to write Luther where I could slip into his words. A lot of what he describes, what they call the Tower experience, when he had that revelation about what the verse in Romans meant about the righteousness of God. A lot of that is taken from that translation in his words. And I just wanted to make sure, and the same thing when he talks about the story where he climbs the Scala on his knees and begins to question the life of indulgence, the same thing. When he recounts that story in one of the table talks he does, I wanted to use as much of his verbiage as possible because it was so personal. So it's nice, and that's the main reason I was doing the research about Luther. I wanted people, and it's been nice when I've gone to talkbacks at places where the play's been done, people come up afterwards and say, I'm a Lutheran and I recognize that, you know, and that's the guy who we've been taught. You know, sometimes he gets lost in the theology or lost in the context of his whole life, but at this moment, at this time, that's who we were taught to believe. And, you know, that's very rewarding because you know, like I say, Faustus was very easy. Faustus is like 90% me, 5% George Carlin, and the remainder is Timothy Leary, Groucho Marx. You know.
Now that you say George Carlin, I told you.
Oh, George Carlin was very. Once I was using pictures of George during his, you know, like his 70s long hair.
Yeah.
I thought that's the kind of professor that Faustus is. You know.
That's great.
Language, it's all about the language, and it's also all about question everything. You know, very anti-authoritarian.
Which is very George Carlin. Yeah.
Now,
you had mentioned that Hamlet talks in iambic pentameter, especially when he's going on his sort of journey and he's expressing himself. I found even when he wasn't in full verse mode, there was something in his language, even when he was just having a dialogue, that was very Old English, Elizabethan sort of, that was very different from the modern Lutheran and Faust dialogue.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit why you chose to do that?
Part of that is I feel there's a certain expectation. I mean, there aren't that many plays out there that deal with Hamlet as a character outside of Shakespeare's. You know, Lee Blessing's Fortinbras. There's, you know, he appears in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, but more or less, you know, I think he's almost entirely speaking the words he used. But so there's an expectation that people have about how Hamlet speaks, and I didn't want to confound that expectation, especially since I was going to know I was taking such liberties with Faustus and the way he was going to be talking. And then I thought, well, you know, within that, I also like writing in blank verse. An earlier play I wrote, it's called Darkfall, and it's sort of a modern sequel to Paradise Lost, and the characters are speaking in verse throughout. The characters who are based on the archangels and the devil. And it's very liberating to write. So why Hamlet speaks the way he speaks. The other thing I liked is that he was, he's the nobility, and Faustus and Luther are both very pronounced commoners. So I liked that kind of
that dichotomy.
Yeah, exactly. The formality of language, and he's Danish in their German.
Right.
So it's just another way of suggesting that kind of, you know, and it's just fun, you know, to use archaic constructions, like when he talks about having when Copernicus's effect made him sort of nauseous, and he actually, when he talks about throwing up, he says it, you know, it did cause him to pitch the kippers when first its import struck him in the plexus. You know, and you have to hear that, and you think, pitch the, you know, because kippers are, you know, Danish treat, but struck, I liked using struck, you know, and I liked using the Elizabethan contractions, it's just a different tone in the music. I also like, you know, I like the sound of it, which was so great about hearing the reading yesterday, is hearing the sound of it again, the music of the play. And then Hamlet has that sort of, you know, it's like a clarinet, it's kind of not sad, you know, he brings that, and whereas you've kind of like, especially Scott, his Faustus is very brass, you know, and then I think sometimes, you know, Luther's just this timpani that just really, so that's kind of why mainly because I felt like I owed it to the audience to not back away